Welcome to Untethered. This video concludes our short series of our first year full-time RV journey. Join us this week as we peek at Cody's basement to determine which tools he considers necessary and some others that he just likes to have.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Untethered. Cody and Angela here, kind of got a little different video for you today as we go through our short order of videos about our first year in full-time RV living. And Father's Day is coming up soon. I thought this would be a great time to talk about the tools you need out on the road and the stuff that you don't really have to have, but it's pretty nice to have. If you guys watched our walkthrough video, you know how much stuff is in here and how cluttered this all is. So let's go ahead and pop it open, take a look, and see what we need to get going for full-time RV living, or even just a weekend trip. I know there's a ton of videos out there on gear that you need for the road, tools you need for the road, etc. You've probably watched a lot of them and said, I can never fit all that into my trailer. I just don't have the space and I can't carry the weight. I'm going to set your mind at ease right now. If you're out here and you're ready to get going, you can fit 90% of what you need to take care of most of your own issues on the road in this little $20 tool bag from Harbor Freight. This is actually a tool bag I put together when we were part-timing and doing the weekend warrior thing, and this really took care of most of it. So I'm going to run through this. This is some of the must-have stuff to carry when you're out on the road. Okay, so what all did we put in this $20 tool bag that I felt like was necessary to get out on the road and travel, whether it's full-time or just for the weekend? One of the things I reach for most on a regular basis, really, simple little screwdriver. Doesn't really matter which brand. I think I picked this one up at Harbor Freight for $5 or $6. What's really nice about this style of screwdriver, it's a space saver. Most fasteners you're going to need to tighten on your camper are going to be Phillips or square head. By having something that has a Phillips head, a flat head, and we flip it over, and we've got a square head on the other side. In most RVs, these little square heads are what hold a lot of the screws in your trim and in your floor pieces, your fixtures on the wall and stuff like that. This is going to help you tighten up a lot of those things that come loose out on the road. I always carry a utility knife. These are really nice. Picked this up at Harbor Freight also. Pretty cheap. They have interchangeable razor blades on them, so when it gets dull, you just pop a blade out, throw it away, and put a new one in. I always like to carry needle nose pliers. I actually picked these up at Harbor Freight too. These longer ones are great, especially if you're like me and you drop stuff that's hard to reach, or maybe it goes down in a crack. These things are great for grabbers, and they're also great for any miscellaneous job you might run into. I carry an old school trucker's air gauge. These things are dirt cheap. They go up to 150 PSI, and they're a great backup. If you get on the side of the road, you got a TPMS sensor going off like we did down in Kerrville, Texas. You can just stop. You don't have to plug anything in. You don't have to put batteries in anything. You can just check the tire. Quick and easy, make sure you're good to get back on the road. This is Teflon tape. A lot of the campgrounds I run into have leaky faucets. So you can actually take a little bit of this Teflon tape, put it around the threads on the faucet, tighten things back up. You're probably going to stop your leak. Also works great for plumbing connections inside the trailer, like under your sink or on the back side of your toilet. Kind of along that same note, just a cheap set of channel lock pliers. Water hose spigots like to leak. Sometimes they're hard to get off, hard to put on. Having a pair of channel locks just to give it a quick little twist, make sure it's good and tight, saves the day every time. I always carry Gorilla Tape for obvious reasons. Mainly it's out of fear, because I've seen all the Facebook posts online of RV windows getting broken out in storms and things like that. This is really good tape that'll get you out of a bind. You just hope you don't have to use it, because it's a pain to get off if you ever have to peel it off. I carry a tape measure, and this is a good tip if your trailer or your motorhome has slide outs. Make it a point to measure how far your slides come out and put that in your phone. That way when you get to a campground, if you're just a little concerned, maybe you got a tree or a power pedestal or something like that, check your phone, walk around, measure the distance, make sure you don't open those slides into something you shouldn't and damage them. A caulk gun, and this is not new. I've had this for probably 20 years. In your owner's manual, it'll tell you how often you should get up and do visual roof inspections. At some point or another, when you go up to do that visual roof inspection, you're going to have something that needs to be re-caulked, resealed. You got to have a caulk gun to do that. It doesn't take up much space and it doesn't weigh very much, so I just carry one with me. I like to carry around some kind of clear silicone in a small tube. This is mainly for that really small spot that's maybe on the side of the trailer or around a slide seal or something like that, and you just need to do a quick touch up, but you don't want to burn a whole tube of caulk to do it. I've been carrying this one around for about a year, and you can see I haven't even used half of it, but it is really handy in a pinch. Just break the top off, squirt it on, smooth it out, and you're done. Electrical tape. It kind of goes without saying that this trailer has lights all over it and brake wires and everything else. In the event you got to do a last minute repair on the side of the road, electrical tape can be your very best friend. I always carry around one of these extra little RV water pressure regulators. A lot of campgrounds have really high water pressure, and odds are your trailer can't take 100 psi. I actually have one hooked up right now, but given the number of these that I've found at campgrounds that people have left behind, I figure it's only a matter of time before I leave mine behind. So I actually carry just a cheap little pressure regulator to get me out of a jam, and that goes right in the tool bag too. Other things we carry are miscellaneous lubricants. I like the WD-40 dry lube. I like heavy duty silicone spray. Think about just anything that could get squeaky and get annoying, like your steps coming in and out, or maybe a squeaky door, something like that. These are just great things to have on hand, and there's a million uses for them. I also carry a dead blow hammer. This did not come from Harbor Freight. This is actually a Snap-on brand that I've had for, again, 20 years. I don't use this so much anymore, but when I had my bumper pull trailer and I used the EQ weight distribution hitch that had the big heavy bars on it, when you go to get those things off, they can be a pain, and a lot of times they don't come off easy. Getting under the trailer, giving it a couple whacks, those bars usually pop right off. It was actually recommended to me by the dealer I bought my last bumper pull from, so I always have one on hand. Now it mainly gets used for things like driving tent stakes in the ground to hold down our outdoor carpet, but who doesn't need a hammer? And I've actually been in situations where I've helped other people at campgrounds that couldn't get their weight distribution bars off. Walk out, give it a quick whack. If you're running a fifth wheel, you probably won't have too many uses for a big hammer, but it's just a common tool that's nice to have around the house. And last but not least, I like these cheap little headlamps that you can pick up anywhere. Brands don't matter, doesn't matter what color it is. Just something that if you have to get out on the side of the road at night to change a tire, whatever the case may be, have some way to get some light out without having to use your hands while you're working on something in the dark. Back on the subject of water hoses. I know I've mentioned this a few times, but I love these water hose quick connects. I put them on my hoses, on my filter, on my flow meter, on the faucet itself. That way when you get where you're going, all you have to do is hook two hose ends together, boom, nice and easy. They're cheap and they make things a lot more efficient for setup and teardown. With that, always make sure you have some extra O-rings for your water hoses. If you're full-time like us and you're hooking and unhooking a lot, these things start spraying pretty fast. So it's always nice to have these on hand. I probably have to change one every 3 or 4 trips. Another thing that's kind of a must-have out on the road is a good extension cord. Whether you're like us and you have like a Traeger grill or some kind of smoker that you have to run 110 power to, maybe you want to run some party lights, maybe you need to fire up an air compressor and top off a tire. These things are really great to have. Do yourself a favor, buy the cheap extension cord reel. It just works so much better, it's so much cleaner, and it saves you from going to pull out an extension cord for what you think is going to be a quick job and end up having a big spider's nest all over the basement of your camper. These things come in really handy. I have auto level, but I still carry an old school level. Auto level's great, but it's not perfect, and sometimes it can get out of calibration. So generally I like to check level with this before we unhook. That way if we're way off to one side or the other, I know I can put some Lynx levelers under one tire just so there's not so much pressure on my auto leveling system. This is a pretty big one. It doesn't fit in the tool bag, so it doesn't fall in that $100 category. I think this thing was 70 or 80 bucks on Amazon, but you should really consider investing in a good torque wrench. This is a Lexavon torque wrench. It's not a pricey brand name. Like I said, it came from Amazon, but it does have up to 250 foot-pounds of torque if you need it. We don't need that much for our tires, but you should have a torque wrench. You should be checking your lugs periodically based on your owner's manual specifications and making sure your lug nuts are good and tight. Nobody wants to lose a lug nut or a tire going down the highway. I usually check my lugs on every trip just to make sure we're torqued up to snuff. Came with a nice little plastic carrying case. because torque wrenches don't like to be bounced around too much. They'll get knocked out of calibration too, so I was glad that it came with a nice case. Along with the torque wrench, have yourself a set of sockets. I actually picked this up from Amazon. You'll notice I have one Craftsman socket in here because I lost one, admittedly. But this goes from 10 millimeter up to 24 millimeter. This is a really good set. They're impact rated. They've got some extensions and things with them. And they roll up in a nice little box that you can just throw behind the seat of your truck or in your basement. Nothing gets scattered around. Definitely have some sockets for that torque wrench, otherwise it's kind of useless. I do have some roadside assistance packages on my camper insurance, but waiting on roadside assistance on the side of the road may not always be the best bet. For me personally, if it's a safe area, I'm going to go ahead and change that tire myself so I can get back on the road a little quicker. And for that, I really like these trailer aids, and I've actually used these on my old RV when I was out in Wyoming and had a tire go down on me. These things work out really well if you have a tandem axle trailer, meaning you have 2 axles, 4 tires, or 3 axles, 6 tires on your trailer. What you can do, if your back tire is flat, you can place this in front of the front tire and pull the trailer up onto it. That should give you enough clearance on that back tire to be off the ground enough to zip it off and put the spare on. If you have a taller trailer, I have seen some guys that had to take and screw a wood block, like a 2x6 wood block, cut the length of this to get an extra inch or two to get the tire off the ground far enough to change it. But these things are super handy. They're really light and they don't take up much space. And it's a lot safer than a bottle jack if you're in a pinch. Another thing I like to carry, and this is more of an ease of use thing, are these little bike straps. You'd be surprised how much you have to tie up on travel day. I know I continuously find uses for these. These things are great. You'll see I actually have one on my ladder versus the bungee cord I used to keep on there. It's great like for this chair when I scrunch it up. I can just put this around it and jerk it tight. I have some totes and things on my back rack along with my barbecue grill back here that I use these to tie on with. These things are just great. They're cheap. You'll find a million uses for them. Not a must-have, but it's a really nice thing to have. These things are surprisingly cheap. I think I bought half a dozen of them on Amazon here a while back for $12 or $15. They're not very expensive at all, but just super nice to have. And since they're so cheap, when they get nasty or they start to fray, just chunk them in the trash. I would highly recommend carrying an extra sewer cap on the road. These are just a couple of bucks. You can get them on Amazon too. Most states will ticket you if your sewer cap is not on going down the highway. Even if it's not leaking, some places will ticket you for not having the cap. So I always carry an extra. Another thing, these rubber or silicone twist wraps, these things are awesome. I have really small ones for doing things like keeping my computer cords tied up and neat when we're on travel day, all the way to some of these bigger ones. This is actually the one I use for my 50 amp power cord when I roll it up and put it away. And these things are super easy. It's literally wrap it, twist it, and you're done. I've even went as far as to use these in the shower to hook over the shower rack and hang hangers on with clothes when our clothes didn't quite get dry at the laundromat. This one's kind of dirty and dingy. It's been knocked around a lot, but they last a long time and they are worth their weight in gold in terms of organization. All right, so just a few more things here, guys, as far as what I carry. I'm not going to call this a necessity, but it is for me. I haven't ran into a lot of electrical problems, luckily, out on the road, knock on wood, but they do happen. I picked up this little toolbox at Harbor Freight for like $5. It's more like a tackle box than a toolbox, but I use it to hold miscellaneous electrical connections, heat shrink, and things like that. So if I do need to do a repair on the side of the road, I've got everything I need to do. Up in the top, it's got a nice steep little drawer. I keep my multimeter in here, more zip ties, more electrical tape, and my extra fuses. You can pick these up on Amazon as well. That's where I got mine. This actually has an assortment of mini fuses, standard size fuses in different amperages. So if you blow a fuse on the side of the road and your tail lights aren't working, boom, you got the answer right here. 10-second fix. And with any electrical job, you're going to need a set of electrical pliers to strip wires and crimp connections and things like that. Pick these up anywhere. These are Harbor Freight ones. They were super cheap. Starting with this Milwaukee pack-out box. I actually bought this when we sold our house, and I have big roll-around toolboxes, and I knew I wanted to carry some stuff but not everything. These are nice and stackable. I've got a bottom that has wheels on it to where you can wheel it around. This thing's great. I don't get into it a whole lot because a lot of these tools I just haven't needed yet. I do keep some things in here like a socket set, a set of box wrenches, and a whole bunch of different screwdrivers and pliers and things that I thought I might need. Like I said, other than getting a socket and a wrench out every now and again, I haven't had to get into this too much, but I am going to continue to carry it with me, especially if I had a problem with the truck or something like that. That's really what this is more suited for, but it's nice to have if you have the space and you can handle the weight. Back to the subject of nice things to have, but not necessary, I like carrying a little electric leaf blower. I've had Milwaukee stuff for a long time. I already have the battery, so I kind of just keep buying Milwaukee stuff, and in my opinion, it is some of the best stuff you can buy out there. This is great to blow off your pad at your campsite, get leaves off the roof or whatever, just not during quiet hours. These are great. A broom does just as good. It's just a nice to have. We talked about the headlamps earlier and having a flashlight. I love my Milwaukee Searchlight. It has 2 or 3 different functions on it as far as brightness, but I really like that I can articulate this head wherever I need it, set it flat on the ground, knock out a project, even if it's a little dark or dusky outside. I feel like we're developing a brand trend here. I will remind you that I'm not sponsored by Milwaukee though. I love this little shop vac. This thing is great. I've had it for a few years. I used to use it around my shop before I went full-time RV. This thing's great. The hose is inside. It runs off my drill battery. When you get done, the bottom just pops off. You can dump the dust bin. It's got a HEPA filter in here. Super lightweight. The battery lasts a long time. And in my opinion, it sucks just as good as a regular shop vac. These are just nice to have in lieu of a screwdriver, especially for things that take a little more torque. Milwaukee sells a nice set of an 18-volt cordless drill and an 18-volt 1/4-inch impact for about 200 bucks with a couple of batteries. This is when I bought them. That price may have changed between now and then. These things are just really handy to have around. You don't have to have them, but they're nice to have. Another nice to have, and one of my favorites, I actually just used it the other day when I was doing my wheel bearings. A 1/2-inch drive battery operated impact gun. On a camper, there's not a whole lot that you're going to need this much power. It's mainly a tire thing, but man, these are so great when we take off driving on dirt road excursions. I love carrying this and my sockets with me, so if I had to change one in the middle of a dirt road somewhere, it's fast. And probably my favorite tool that I bought in the last 6 months or a year, I actually did a whole video on this if you want to go back and check it out. That's my Milwaukee M18 air inflator. I used to carry an actual air compressor in the trailer. It took up a ton of space. It was super loud. This thing's great. You just dial in the pressure that you want on the screen and hit the button, walk away. Runs off my same batteries that my drill and my impact and my blower run off of. I use it to air up my airbags. I use it to take care of my tires. I use the blower attachment to blow out the air filter on my shop vac or clean the AC filters. This has probably been the most handy tool that I've bought in the last year, and I just love it. So that's the quick and dirty version of the tools that I carry out on the road. I've been accused of being the master of overkill forever, so I know I have a bunch of stuff that I don't really need. It's just stuff that works really well for us out on the road. What do you guys carry? What do I miss? I know I missed something. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what your favorite thing to carry on the road is, or a trick that I may not have thought of. Again, thank you guys so much for watching and for all the support. We really, really appreciate it. If you haven't, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Be safe and take care.
Remember, you can always go back to review these videos as we drop them in the playlist portion of the page as well.